Welcome, friends. All two or three of you. Woo! All right. Hey, great to have you here on this Saturday morning. Unintended Consequences, episode number 67. Let's see. I guess I'll just jump right in. Again, great to see everybody. I have been teasing the last couple of weeks some new ideas, and I've been considering how I might present those. And in fact, it's been suggested that I make notes because I sometimes forget. There's a good reason for this. That I sometimes don't take notes, and this is to keep it sort of stream of consciousness. When I originally began the channel, it was my intention to pre-record and pre-produce videos like most others that I had seen, and put them together in a logical order. It made sense. A couple of things happened there. First, I had some trouble with copyright issues and background music, that sort of stuff, and which is why I switched to using all original music and where noodling came from. But the live stream, frankly, was easier, and I also enjoyed the camaraderie. I enjoyed getting together with people. I still do. But it also, and it makes it, I think, relaxed and conversational. But it also does, I think, it can lead to being a bit disjointed. People do from time to time, not just in this stream, but in others I've been on. Give a hard time that I use verbal placeholders from time to time as I'm trying to consider how to put things. And sometimes it's not that easy. It's not because I don't know what I'm thinking or what I'd like to say. It's I don't quite know how to express it and elucidate it well in a way that would make sense. I've often described that I kind of have a pachinko machine going on inside my head. There's so many different avenues and threads of ideas and thoughts that are going on, and it makes sense to me, and it's sometimes difficult to grab all those things and to put them in a way that I can make sense in a landscape that you can see it. And sometimes I think the verbal, or not just a verbal, but adding a visual to it can help. And so I try to do that from time to time. But ultimately, let's start here. As we begin to look at this whole thing, we realize that we're trying to put together pieces of a puzzle. At least this is kind of what I've come to, and we've described this in many ways. And I've said before that I think even the term truth community is a bit of a misnomer. Well, especially of late when it's taken poorly, to tell the truth, but I'll leave that alone for now. But that it is very difficult to know the truth when so many lies have been told. They have gone to, they, powers that be, whoever, the PIC, the people in charge, whatever, have gone to extraordinary lengths to hide this information. They've destroyed it. They've told a whole lot of lies. And so it makes sometimes finding the truth very difficult indeed. But we can certainly ascertain, we can break down lies. Lies typically fall under the weight of their own lack of evidence. They just aren't real. And you can begin to tease them apart pretty quickly. And so really, we spend much of our time in the truth community really tearing down lies and deconstructing whether it's news stories or history or, everything from dinosaurs and asteroids to the shape of the world. We look at these things and we say, is that really real? Is that really true? And we have come to understand that we have been lied to on an enormous scale. And for many people, it's quite upsetting. I think, it does change your paradigm. And when you realize that everything you knew was not true, boy, can that shake you up a bit. And so these questions come up, like, how big is this really? How big is that lie really? And who lied, and how, and about what, and when? And these can be endless rabbit holes. And I see people fighting endlessly about which ones are valid, which ones aren't. Is that a mountain? Is it a melted building? Is it a mud flood? Like what's going on in people? Is that mountain a giant? All these theories that get put out, and there's interesting, certainly interesting information. There's evidence. I don't think there's a slam dunk on any of these things, but there's information. Certainly, again, enough interesting information and ideas that it should be worth exploring. But these can be endless rabbit holes that we go down, and trying to prove it. Many people take a position that they, again, need and have to be right, and at any cost. And if that means tearing down other people, so be it, right? But if we start looking again, if you go down any of these rabbit holes, we come to this question about, again, what is this place really? What is it? And what are we? Who are we? And why are we here? And how did we get here? And as we begin to ask these questions, well, these are the age-old questions, then, aren't they? This is the basis of philosophy. And as it turns out, philosophy simply means the love of wisdom, of understanding, philo, to love, and Sophia, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, philosophy, and which, frankly, is the beginning, was the basis. In fact, science used to be called natural philosophy, right? To study nature, to understand the love of understanding nature, natural philosophy. That's what it used to be called. And now philosophy has been relegated to sort of woo. Right, I got a degree in philosophy. You want fries with that? Right, and so we consider these questions unanswerable. Who are we? Why are we here? It's just like blah blah blah. Well, let's talk about science. We're going to science the shit out of this. Well, basically, that was the fundamental question about science. That was what led to all the other questions about what is everything, is to answer the questions of who are we and why are we here. Can we know these things with any certainty? Well, I have often suggested that certainly for some things, if anybody tells you they know for sure, well, again, absolute certainty is the eminent domain of frauds and fools. They are either lying to you or they're just insane. They're deluded if they say that they know for sure. But there's evidence. We can certainly, I feel comfortable to my own, threshold of certainty, kind of what's going on with a lot of questions. And one of the things I know for certain is that I don't know for certain very much. Right? But one of the things that I think I have come to, and I think many people have, especially when they look at the world around them and realize one of the lies that we've been told is that we are insignificant and we live in a world of insignificance and you are stardust. That makes you special by being not special. Oh, dear. Yeah, so if you realize that it is a created domain, that means, of course, there is a creator, and then that brings up all sorts of other implications, one of which, and I think, again, I have harped on this a bit to the point where I feel like I'm on a soapbox, and it's an uncomfortable position for me to be in, because that's not my intention, to soapbox the shit out of things. It's not where I really am comfortable. But ultimately, I think if we get to that place of saying it is a created place, then there's a creator, and it behooves us to get to know that creator, and maybe then we can answer some of those questions about why are we here. If we ask the person who made us, what did they had in mind? Perhaps that's possible. But perhaps it is possible to know. But one of the things that it does seem to be is that, and one of the stories that we're told is that we have been born into a spiritual battle that was not of our doing. We did not make it. We did not start the fire, as the song says, but we were born into it. And if you choose to stick your head in the sand, it doesn't alleviate the consequences or responsibility of your choices. And ultimately, if we look at it very closely, it does seem almost to be that the very nature of the game is the type of choices that you make. Whatever you choose seems to be I don't know, that is one of the dart shots. I don't know, that is one of the, I don't know if you want to say a pawn, but you're not necessarily a pawn. Your choices actually determine the outcome of the game. It's very interesting. But as we look at this, right, we get a sense, because one of the many lies that we've been told over the generations, especially recently, is that science and philosophy are at odds with one another. In fact, they are diametrically opposed, that woo and science are at odds with one another. They are at war, when in fact they are, I think, the very same thing. I got a sense for a very long time in studying Scripture, when I would read the miracles of Jesus, and got a sense of the man and the confidence with which he behaved. And it struck me as a man who, again, not performing magic tricks, but simply not doing magic, but calling forth physics, right? So if I have this lighter here before me and it's sitting on a desk, it is held in place by the laws of inertia, that the mass keeps it in place, and it's stuck there. Friction and other things keep it in place, and so it sits there. But if I reach out and slide it over here, did I perform magic or a miracle? No, I simply invoked other physical laws which overcame inertia enough to move it. And by this same description, if you if you invoke laws of physics that are in harmony with but supersede other laws of physics, then you can know with certainty that when I flip the switch, it may seem like magic, but the light comes on. But if you understand wiring and electricity, you know what's going to happen. Any sufficiently advanced technology appears as magic. Well, again, if you understood the physics behind it, if you understood the nature of reality, as the kid in the Matrix said, there is no spoon, right? But that the nature of reality is, to a degree, fluid. It is built out of this etheric substance, this non-material. The materiality is built out of something that's non-material, and therefore it is fluid and can be manifest or reorganized in a way different than originally perceived. And now I want to talk a bit about perception and how to better, at least trying to better understand the nature of where we're at. One of the things that is a challenge, as I began with, to express some of these ideas, is the nature that they are inherently a combination of a variety of different disciplines and kind of put together. And this puts me in a place of sort of having to take on the mantle, I suppose, of a teacher, and a role with which I am familiar enough. I have taught many clinics and taught many classes in a variety of topics, and so it's something with which I'm familiar. But in this aspect and in this area, right, I'm less comfortable with it, not because I'm not comfortable with the topic or the content, but more because of the nature of what the implication is. If I express this as a teacher, are you really, students? Or, and this is one of the things that I observe, and this is, again, there is no accusation, simply observation. If we take a look that so many people, even within our community, when they shuffle off the mantle of one belief system, they simply replace it for another. They go looking for another set of solutions. Show me this model. And they want a complete model, and they just replace one for another. And yet, they don't really well understand either of them. They simply exchange one belief system for another, largely based on their confidence in and their believability of the person who told them. So is that person believable? And isn't this where it all began to the problem to begin with is we were taught to accept authority positions. So find the smartest guy in the room and then listen to what he says and, say that as best you can and you'll seem smart. And this is what they teach you in school. This is the indoctrination clinic that they call education. This is Western education, certainly in the United States. This is what I saw and what I continue to see. In fact, on steroids now. There's no other purpose. It is not to teach you anything other than it's social engineering in that you advocate, you're dumb. And what you need to do is repeat the things that we tell you. And if you do that well enough, you get the gold star, and you can kind of repeat it well enough. And then that's the official narrative. And as long as you hang on to that, then you're good. If you ask any questions, then you must be dumb, and you're going to get in trouble. So don't ask any questions, and don't say, for God's sake, don't say that shit don't make sense. Because then you're just dumb and you're holding up the class. So just do the thing, right? Just do what everybody else is doing. Just repeat the things, and everything will be all right. And so what they teach you is to advocate your mental capacity. Don't learn how to think, learn how to repeat, and learn who is the authority, and then who you can trust to repeat what they have to say. Even when you come to recognize that those things, many of them, were untrue. But then we ask again, why would they lie, right? So many people say, hey, why would they lie? Well, they aren't, many of them. Your teachers, were they lying? Oh, I can't believe my wonderful third grade teacher was a Illuminati shill, a Jesuit shill, really lying to me? No. They're just a lovely person that you thought they were doing the best they could to instill curiosity in young minds. All the things that we love teachers for. It's just the problem is the script that they were given was bunk. But the better they learn the script and the more of an expert they become on that script, the less likely they are to deviate from it. And thus we continually quote Mark Twain. It's far easier to fool a man than to convince him that he has been fooled. Or as I say, the higher the education, the deeper the indoctrination, because you're so much deeper invested. Time, energy, money, and reputation is entirely based on those things that you know and defending that position. Again, we're told, don't question the science, but science is questioning. That's the nature of science. There is no such thing as a settled science. Again, it's all a hoax. It's misdirection. See, it's a ploy. They tell you that science proves things, and then they say, well, no, we just do, what we want. You guys already know this, but what I want to get to is this, right? Don't simply exchange one set of beliefs for another. You must, and I think everyone here would agree with this idea, because I think you've experienced it. As soon as you learn the nature of the lie and you come to this realization, right, that now you want to go tell somebody, right? You have this little come to Jesus moment, and you're born again. It's kind of the same, right? Nothing's more just impossible to deal with than born again new believers, man. Baby Christians are like, oh my God. I mean, I love them to death because they get on fire. They're excited. But, man, they're insufferable. They just want to tell everybody. I mean, again, God love them. They're on fire. They're in love, and they're passionate about it. But, man, if you don't want to hear that, oh, dear, right? And so just nothing's worse than a true believer sometimes. So when they don't want to hear it, there's right, you just, oh, God, not again. And so now you're going to have a difficulty in trying to share this information with people. And then they want to tell you that you're dumb or crazy or joining a cult when they don't see the irony of the fact that they're in the cult. But let's come back to this. Right? We live in a world of specialization and isolation. And so they teach you only one thing you specialize. Let's take medicine, for example, allopathic medicine, which is one of the worst. But you don't even become a general practitioner anymore. Right? You become a podiatrist or colorectal surgeon because, yeah. Born again non-smokers, exactly. Those are the worst. So militant, right? They become just the militant. And so, again, these are people that become, they get excited. And so some people become very evangelistic. And again, I'm not against, I've said before, I'm not against people who are doing it. We've got, several members of the community who are out there doing it in a big way and doing live streams. And, is it effective? To a degree, maybe it is. It's, not for me because I typically, I find better success not telling people, but asking questions. Because if I tell them, then I'm assuming, again, this is where I come back to, I'm assuming that they're accepting my authority. I'm going to tell you how it is, and you're going to accept that. And do I seem believable or not? And that, my veracity, my authenticity is what sets the threshold for whether or not the information is true. And that is where, again, I don't want to be responsible for it. I want to be responsible for what you believe. These are ideas that I have, and I can share and express them with you, and experiences that I have. But ultimately, it's up to you. And I think everybody, here, at least I would think so, everybody in this parking lot, right, understands that you don't get here unless you get here on your own. There is just no way here, or you shouldn't be, right, unless you got here on your own. And those who are simply exchanging, again, one set of ideas for another, it's a very shallow sort of belief, because as soon as one of those things gets discredited or disproven, or, God forbid, the leader of their movement is shown to be something that they don't expect, or we're disingenuous, right? Then all bets are off, and suddenly their hopes are dashed, right? That's why I've said from the beginning, right? The whole points of me just going by the Great Baldini and not showing my face was that to me the message was more important than the messenger. Don't get too caught up in me. I'm just a guy, right? The jokes are bad. The coffee is good. Hopefully the noodles come out okay from time to time, right? But anyway, so I want to kind of interject that, and I want to throw kind of tie it back to these ideas of it is up to you, and you need to I got to say, I don't respond well to that. You need to blah blah blah. So he says that to me. You can pretty much guarantee I'm going to not do that thing. So let me rephrase that. My experience is that the best way to understand things is from the context of basically polymathism, right? So you got to really be, okay. It's much easier from a multidisciplinary standpoint, where you learn that different aspects of the world correspond to one another, and then you begin to see these things appear over and over. That even things that seem otherwise unassociated appear in numerous places. The Fibonacci sequence appears in numerous places in nature, in the spiral, and you see it in the Nautilus, and all these things, and you see the inverse square law across all of physics. So these things begin to appear, and as you look at these things and you see the interconnectivity, that is one of the most mind-blowing things. Not that there is this interconnectivity, but that it's not more obvious, right? One of the things I think was a big point of revelation for me, this big moment of epiphany, right, was this understanding of this interconnectedness of all things, that we have, everything is connected. And if you, back in the day, studying quantum physics, and, you've got spooky action at a distance and quantum entanglement, this sort of idea. And you've got so much of these, I don't know. But you got these competing ideas that show up, and it helps to, it certainly has helped me to take a look at many of them as I can, even the ones that are, I don't know, less helpful, just to better understand it. That's why I've always been interested in understanding people's ideas, even if I didn't agree with them. At least looking at them, because it helps me better understand it, and to go down these various rabbit holes. But as you begin to see the connectedness, especially this interconnectedness of all things, that is one of, again, it seems so obvious. Once you see it, it just seems like duh. And yet it becomes very clear, if you kind of back up and look at it, how hard they try to keep us from realizing that. Well, how that the very premise of the idea of a collective consciousness, of there being anything more, is just considered to be the craziest, most woo, like, oh, you poor dear, you sweet summer child, right? Here, have a popsicle, right? It's a it is dismissed with the greatest amount of prejudice by any serious scientific mind that there would be anything like this. In fact, this is why it's attributed to Einstein to say that quantum entanglement is spooky action at a distance, because he was very uncomfortable with his idea. So, it seems, again, like many things, that part of the trick is misdirection. Don't look there. Right? So anytime they tell you don't look, that's a great place to go looking. So this interconnectedness of all things. And I hope I'm going to tie this back together in a way that makes sense, because I'm trying to come back. This is part of what I want to get to, and why I want to express these ideas as ideas rather than as a teaching. I don't want you just necessarily accept them because I've given them to you. I would much rather it instill curiosity in you, and that you go pursue these ideas on your own. There's some of it, of course, that we know just because it's basic stuff, but there's other things that, once you begin to build on this, they're ideas. All right, to that extent, I want to come back to this idea of wave theory, the idea that waves are a perturbation in some sort of media, and that there is a self-organizing pattern that presents itself, and ultimately there has been a lot of argument made, especially amongst the Flat Earth community, about the veracity of the luminiferous ether, whether there is one. Certainly, if we go back prior to the 20th century, it was given, again, amongst philosophy, that is the love of natural philosophy, the love of natural science. Certainly, it was long accepted that the ether was the quintessence, the fifth essence, through which flows everything. And to me, for most of my early part of the understanding of this process, I attributed the ether with all of the aspects of these things. I now have come to a different understanding of things, and it is that which I intend to try and express, or at least give you an idea of what's happening here, and why some of these things not only may be related, but why some of the things around you are happening, and explains to a degree, I think, why some people can see it and some people can't. We'll get there. All right. So if I accept for a moment, if we accept the idea, or at least just consider the idea, that there is, in fact, in the same way, well, let's take a look at this, right? Electromagnetic waves. If we take a look at this, do I not have that there? Where's this at? Okay, this. All right. So if we have this idea that electricity and magnetism coexist and co-interactive on essentially perpendicular planes, right, 90 degrees to one another. So when electricity acts in one way, magnetism reacts in a corresponding manner, but on the other axis. Does that make sense? Pretty straightforward. And so, let's see, where do I have that? This? Yes. Okay. So this shows that when one is moving in one axis, you can see the other moving. I hope that you can see that. The arrow's pointing, and you've got those two aspects of the wave traveling thusly. Okay. So I have proposed fairly recently that there is, well, in the same way electricity and magnetism interact like this, that the ether, if we want to call it that, and I think the ether probably is a different thing, so I want to set that aside for a moment. I'm going to say that the ether is the media through which electromagnetic this manifests. That's the media through which this manifests. But there is this other thing that manifests, and it is what material objects are made of. If we go back and look at the periodic table of the elements, and I have said that I think that is misdescribed. I think that is misdescribed, and that instead what is happening is that these, whoops, not that one, these quantum states exist. So at discrete quantum steps, when these images appear in waves of energy, right? We call that cymatics. In sound energy, these images appear at specific quantum states, and in between, they're not cohesive. They are incoherent, right? In between. And I think this is what matter is that at specific frequencies, it manifests as a material object. But on the other axis of that physical object is its non-material aspect, its spiritual aspect, its light body, however we wanted to call it in the New Age woo. This is actually a thing. It's not woo. It's real, and that every physical object has an immaterial aspect that moves correspondingly along with it, and that's you. All right, so that is an idea that I have presented fairly recently. Again, the reason, the multiple reasons, but part of the reason that I have confidence in this is because it is manifest in, again, we're going to go back to the idea of being a polymath and looking at these things from a multidisciplinary standpoint, is that many other things work just like this. For example, electricity and magnetism, right? So we have precedents for this. So that's what we're looking at here. All right, so now once we have that, okay, now we're going to move on to some of these other ideas. And that is that one of the things, now we've been told that light is both a particle and a wave. You can throw that away. The only reason they're calling it a particle and saying that there's a photon is because they needed to get it to move through the vacuum of space. Well, vacuum cannot carry, it's not a media, so you can't have a perturbation in it. There can be no energy, so they had to make that up. That's nonsense. Light is part of the electromagnetic spectra. Let's see if I can show this. Give me just a moment here, and I'll show this. All right. So we have part of this is that light is part of the electromagnetic spectrum, just in the same way X-rays are. These are different light waves, different frequency of visible light. You've got X-rays, gamma rays, the whole gamut. Right, all the way down. So there's no particle. It doesn't suddenly become a particle at a certain frequency. Oh, gee, I'm going to become a particle now. That's nonsense. It is always, only ever a wave. It's an energy wave. All right, so there's light. Now, if we come back to this, and you've seen Cami demonstrate this, and I'll just quickly show you this, the idea of polarized light. When you take a filter and polarization, right, so we're told that there's polarity, or actually duality. That's what a lot of people say, duality. And I've rejected that in favor of polarity. I think that is a more accurate description. Polarity, organizing things, because we see this, again, in nature. It's not duality, it is polarity. In the same way that we see it with again, electromagnetic waves. We see it in both transverse and longitudinal waveforms. We also see it here in, we see it in the way crystals form. All these have polarized patterns. And the same is true with light. And so when you take filters that polarize or take the waves of light and point them in different directions, that is, it restricts the flow to one direction or another. And when you take two of those filters and you put them at 45-degree angles, or rather 90-degree angles to one another like this, what happens is, right, the light no longer passes through, right? And as you begin to undo that, you'll see the light begin to pass through again, because those polarities now become cohesive with one another, and then you can see it like that. Hey, James. Great to see you. All right. So now, then, if we take this idea and let's go back here to the idea of electromagnetic waves and what is going on here. This receiver, we would know that as an antenna. And it's fascinating. I was thinking about this this morning, right after I got through with Freaky Freaks. And if you haven't, you should go check that out. It's pretty awesome. I really enjoyed doing that. So after Freaky Freaks, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about antenna. I was like, it's kind of interesting that we don't, as humans, have them. I went, oh, what am I thinking? Of course we do. Just because it's not external like a bug doesn't mean that we don't have it. It's just elegantly built in. I got to go all the way back to the ideas of Joseph Mesmer. And he certainly had a map of what he considered like ley lines in the human body. It's like our antenna. And again, the idea of hair being part of the antenna that reaches out into the etheric field. Yeah, sure, I'd go with that. But that we are active antenna, both transmitting and receiving into the ether. And again, you see this waveform pattern here happening in both those axes. That's exactly what we would expect to see out in the universe. And so here is what I'm getting to. And so I wanted to show this. I want to get a little bit more into the idea of, here we go, into the idea of these. So if you can see this toroidal field here, this fluctuating field. And so this is how antennas, broadcasting, receiving work. Again, I consider getting really in-depth into this and going big into how antennas work and, how we use a variety of different kinds of antennas that we can steer them, right? Use antenna arrays. We use this with microwaves, that sort of stuff, to do antenna arrays, and we can steer the pattern. So rather than just using the direct free field emanations, we can steer the energy, both outcoming and incoming, to be more direct and more energetic and do a variety of things. The point being that directionality has a great deal to do with the way antenna works. And so if you're facing in one direction, looking at this, let me come back to this idea. All right. And so if you come back here and you're on the one axis, right, then you're looking for information based on that one axis, but you would miss the information from the other axis if you're only attuned to the one. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you run a little electromagnetic field, right, with a capacitor in a loop, and you move it back and forth, you can get a little bulb, a little incandescent bulb to light up. What does that indicate? Well, it indicates that you've created an electric field. Well, that's just one indicator. It lights up, but it's not showing you the magnetic field that's also generated. Does that mean that the magnetic field isn't there? No, it just means that you didn't have a way to show it. Oh dear. Of course, this looks like I'm. It said there was no data on the stream for a moment. It was very weird. But anyway, it would indicate that, so you would only have one indication. If you're looking for, Baldini sucks, hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, rock vent sucks. Oh, I thought you said Baldini sucks. See, I can't see. Anyway, so this idea then, if your antenna is tuned to one direction and one sensitivity, if you're tuned to one thing, right? You're looking for that, let's say, magnetism. You'd never realize that there was electricity. You'd never know that there was light there, right? And so now, if we come back to this idea of there being polarizing, right, and there being these polarized light, think now when we talk about polarization, right? Is this not absolutely true with what we see in society, that people have become more and more polarized? And you could say the left and the right, but it's not really that. It's, I don't want to say zombies or sheeple, but those who accept the mainstream narrative, and they're so totally bought into it, and they absolutely see it. And to their mind, in their worldview, anybody who doesn't is a conspiracy theorist. And for those of us in the truth community, we're like anybody who cannot see it as plain as the nose on your face, is a, you know, you know, you're just a media addled zombie, right? You're an NPC. You got nothing. And so there's no left and right, only up and down, but there is left and right. See, there is left and right and up and down. It's these multiple axes. So one group sees it one way and the other group sees it the other, and never the twain shall meet. And so what is that? And I think you can explain this by this polarization. That the light only gets in from one group, they only see the light in that one polarity field. And so to that, well, okay, let's take the idea then. Let me come back here. Okay, like this. And so let me take this idea. Are you familiar with, let's see. All right. So I'm going to show you this, like this idea of a two-image hologram, right? So it's a holographic image that has two images, and when you walk by, it changes image from one to another, and it has everything to do with polarized light. And so in one field, from one angle, you see light in one direction, from the other, you see the other. And they've used this as a trick to display two different images, or a moving image. But if you take this idea of two different images, right, this really well explains what's happening in the world. There's two realities intermingled with one another. There are two realities happening at the same time. There is one reality that's going on this vertical axis. And we see that, right? The truth, we see it. And they see on the horizontal axis back and forth, and they cannot for the life of them see what we're talking about. They are blind to it. They cannot see it. And if we can get sort of at an obtuse angle and get dialed in just right, we can see all of it, right? See all of it really easily. But this explains, I think, again, why orientation is so important, because wherever you're pointed at determines what you can see and experience. I say not just looking at, but again, your orientation spiritually. What are you oriented toward? The light or the darkness? Because it seems that just like these holographic images, these two-image holograms, where from one angle it appears to be one thing, and from the other angle, another. Exactly. Love and the light said it perfectly. The kingdom of God the kingdom of heaven is within you, right? That's how you can see it. And if you, and it's seeing they cannot see, and hearing they cannot hear, right? They cannot see it. Because they're not attuned to it, and they're tuned into the wrong station. Right? You can think of it that way. Their radio station, they're just dialed into the wrong station, and so they can't hear it. And they're getting a completely different program. A completely different program. And so, they're hearing, hip hop, and you're listening to Mozart. And you're wondering why they're doing this strange zombie dance. Because there's something in that carrier wave. I would definitely say that they live as a documentary. There's something in that signal, right? Again, I considered how to go into great detail and how to explain this. I don't think it's necessary. If you want to know, right, the principles are solid. They're based in principles of physics. You can certainly do any kind of research into electromagnetic radiation, the nature of antennas, broadcast, how all that works. You'll find it's all consistent. You'll find it all is perfectly consistent with these ideas. Not making it up, not pulling it out of my ass. The only thing I'm doing is connecting dots. I'm not asking you to accept my view. I'm asking you to go get your own dots and see what picture they make for you. But I think it well explains also, again, some people's behavior. Right? What's your orientation? What are you focused on? And so the quote for today from Proverbs, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Jesus put it this way. He said, from the overflow, from the abundance of a man's heart come his works, both good and bad. What's in your heart? And so, Love and Light again says maybe we can tap in and unlock their signal. In some ways, I'm not sure if I want to. Like, I don't even want to know the grossness that's there. My interest, right, is tapping into the signal of the Creator and getting that frequency. Right? That's what I want to get and get attuned to that. I want my antenna fully dialed in to that frequency so I can receive everything that I need to see there. And that to me would be ideal. Yeah, our own cymatics. Absolutely. Oh, God, you guys are totally getting it. Exactly. So each of us walks around and we are our own cymatics, right? Each of you. So think of the stars, right? Think of the stars. Each of the stars is sonoluminescence, right? Star in a jar. Let's see if I can find that. It's beautiful, right? And it looks exactly like what we see if we zoom into stars. Sonoluminescence. Here we go. Here's that. I'll move it over here. Let's like that. Sonoluminescence. Here. And so, yeah, essentially what happens here is you got sound waves, right, shot into this bubble, and when the bubble collapses, then it makes light. And they call it a star in a jar. Water's above. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Right? Pieces of the puzzle. So each of us, our own star. Each of us, a frequency. Vibrating at a frequency, shining in the night. And putting out your own frequency, ringing along with the other frequencies. Just like I do with Freaky Freaks, right? The singing bowl is kind of lays down the basic tone, and then I add these other frequencies. I'll do it for you now. People would get kind of bored with it, I think. But I love it. This whole thing with the singing bowls and the tuning forks. So I do this every morning over on Rockfin. Somebody said, at first I thought they said Baldini sucks, but they said Rockfin sucks. So you're going to hear a little phase cancellation weirdness and the room open up a bit. But I got a singing bowl and then a bunch of tuning forks in the solfeggio and the chakra tunings. And so essentially, wow, see, there's the phase change. So essentially what happens is I set the bass tone. And that is your basic tone. All right, and then add to that these other tones. And what makes it really interesting is that they modulate that. And I become fairly adept in making them go up or down. Just by focusing on it. but you've got the basic tone, and then adding these other tones to it. And so, what happens is, right, so if you consider this as the etheric tone, right, going out, in fact, it would be better if I did it this way, because this is truer, right? So there's your background. That's the ether going on. And then when you add your own vibe, right, then and depending on your orientation, it's either like that or it's like that, right? So I've just changed it by 90 degrees, and that changes what you hear because the angle of the incidence of the waves are hitting each other differently, and so it's changing them. But I've gotten pretty good at finding the different overtones and putting them together. And so we do this every morning for 20, 30 minutes. And even stuff like embed that, right, and then check this out. And what those do, essentially what's happening though, is you get those different tones. You get those different tones, and they interact with each other, and they modulate each other, and they change the frequency based on how they interact. Well, this is you, right? See, Ronald, it is too early, but you can always go back and catch the replays. I did. I listened to this morning like 3 times. But yeah, you interact with the world around you. Your frequency shines out like a light, right? You affect the world around you. And so if you're dialed in to the frequency of the Creator, then you can send that frequency out. If you're dialed into the opposite, right, then you'll get into a frequency that's going to cancel everything out, and you'll have that effect. I'm sure you've met people that are kind of like those, emotional vampires. They just suck all the energy out. Maybe. Freaky freaks at night, maybe. I'm thinking about doing a variety of stuff, Ronald. You know what? Once I get back in here and start playing with these things, it's almost hard to get me out. The little wife is all like, "Are you going to sit in there forever?" Like, maybe. Maybe. It is too much fun. And not only is it fun, but what I've found, and I mentioned this morning, is that, again, I do it every single morning at 4:20 in the morning. And it does take some discipline. And the days that I'm really kind of not into it are the ones that it turns out I need it the most, and they are the most effective. It's just remarkable how that works. Pretty good stuff. Anyway, hope that you can join us for that. It's over on Rockfin. It's called Freaky Freaks, and I do it every morning at 4:20 in the morning. So you can join us for that. And I do any particular angles that are best. Well, I don't know if you're talking to me specifically, but the angles have to do with the angles of incidence, the way that the angles of the sound waves come off the tuning forks and then hit the bowl, right, in the way that those all those frequencies interact with each other. And so mostly you can kind of hear it, and I've been working with sound waves for so long, I can kind of see it, but it's a little bit weird like that. Anyway, coming to the top of the hour, and I just want to... again, I didn't want to get too detailed because I didn't want to go into a physics class. But what I do want to do is get you the idea and to let you know that this stuff is out there, right? There is a fascinating world. But the more I look at it, the more it is both woo and science. It's real. Magic is real. It's all around us. And the thing is that you're magic. You are a miracle. We are. The world is. And they want us to believe that we're nothing. We're insignificant, unimportant. And that we should just give up and let them have their way. I do not consent. And I never will. Right? Just always say, fuck the fucking fuckers, because they're never going to have my consent. I've said this before. If the battle is for your soul, what makes it so valuable is that you have to offer it. You have to give it by consent. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. I hope that you have a great week, great weekend. I have a whole bunch of medical appointments in the next couple of weeks, so if you're interested in some of that, I'll let you know something when I know something. In the interim, I hope you guys have a great time. Do some research on electromagnetism, Maxwell, Planck, antennas, right? Look at what antennas do. It's pretty cool stuff. I don't know if I'm magic, but I know somebody who is. Dad is awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you with this little, a little too much. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and I'll be back tomorrow for some ancient wisdom. You just know it. I can't stand it. I'll do it for sure. All right, guys. Love you so much. Thanks for coming. I'll see you again soon.